If you're watching this, you know you're in Antara Zook. And today I am here with a birthday cake. That's right, any celebration, big or small, cannot be complete without a beautiful cake to end it with. Cutting a cake open with your loved ones around is the greatest symbol of positive celebration. But during the lockdown period, it had been very difficult for a lot of my friends to do birthday cakes. So today I'm gonna do a very simple yet rich and decadent recipe of a chocolate birthday cake. We will do a basic buttercream to frost it with. And the sponge is rich, dark and chocolatey. So without any further delays, let's get cooking. Today I'm going to show you how to do the sponge first. The sponge needs to be completely cooled down before we even attempt to frost it. My recipe of making this sponge cake is very simple. We start with our dry ingredients, which I always like to measure first. So we start with our flour. As you notice, I have not sieved my flour, but I will ask everyone to sieve their cocoa powder because cocoa powders have a lot of lumps. Now comes the most astonishing part of this particular cake. Same amount of baking powder and baking soda. This actually gives us a sponge which is so light and so airy, as if you're having some sweetened cloud. And a layer of buttercream on it. It just makes perfect sense. Now I'm gonna whisk all my dry ingredients together so that everything is well combined and airy. Generally, in a cake or a cupcake recipe, you will see that the sugar is treated as a wet ingredient. But here, I am going to mix a cup of sugar, which could be anything, caster or granulated, but this time around I had used granulated sugar because I wanted the cake to be nice and dark and not very sweet. But please make sure of one thing, caster sugar would be way more sweeter than the granulated sugar. Mix it thoroughly and set it aside. Now let's work on the wet ingredients. I'm gonna mix 250 ml of cold milk with 1 tablespoon of vinegar and let it sit for just 2 to 3 minutes. You will see that it will start thickening up and it will become buttermilk. And before I forget, please do add 2 teaspoons of vanilla bean paste. So I have added that. 125 ml of normal vegetable oil. Any flavorless oil would do. Crack 2 eggs. Now mix everything together and combine it till you can't see any dry specks of flour with the help of a spatula. Keep a kettle of hot boiled water close. Mix a teaspoon of instant coffee powder and pour it directly on top of the batter. Yes, the batter is going to be really thin. Trust me on this. This is going to give you a beautiful cake. Now once your cake batter is beautifully mixed, let's prepare a cake pan by greasing the pan very well and then sprinkling on some cocoa powder to cover the whole pan evenly. This will ensure that your cake comes out nice without sticking to anything. Once you've poured all your cake batter into the pan, don't forget to shake it and tap it. we are making sure that all the air bubbles or air pockets in the batter comes out right now and not in the oven. Bake it till a toothpick inserted in the middle of the cake comes out clean. It would take about 50 minutes to an hour to bake in the oven, which is already preheated at 200 degrees C. So this is a classic Indian style cake wherein I have used all our Indian products, and even our buttercream will be made using Indian butter, which is utterly and butterly, but a little different than the butters that we find outside India. Buttercream with the cloud-like sponge cake is an amazing combination, and I'll talk about an easy way of frosting a cake, which will be easy for everyone to do and yet so very festive and entertaining. So we start the process by whisking room temperature butter in a stand mixer. The butter should be frothy and foamy at the end of it. It took me almost like 7 to 8 minutes to get it to here. As you can see, this peak is standing up. So this is really nice and fluffy right now. Now I'll add some icing sugar into this. I have added just 3/4 of a cup of icing sugar. This is a 1/4 cup measurement and I'm gonna add 3 cups of it. But really the amount of sugar depends on your own taste. Mix everything very well for about 3 to 4 minutes. Make sure to scrape off the sides of the mixer so that everything gets mixed evenly. Also add a little bit of vanilla for good flavor. I have again used my vanilla bean paste. Taste it for seasoning. If you want it a little more sweeter, add some more sugar. But for me, this measurement works like crazy. Now till the time we are ready to frost the cake, refrigerate this buttercream. Now let's talk of some beginner level tools to frost a cake. It's very simple. All you need is a palette knife or rather a beautiful looking knife which is blunt in nature. Palette knife which has a curved edge to it, just like this. It's just easier to reach the nooks and crannies of the cake with this kind of edge. You need a brush with a silicone brushing top so that we can brush on some sugar syrup to lock the moisture of the sponge cake. And you need a cake board like this. It's optional, but if you have it, it's going to be way more easier to cut and transfer the cake from the refrigerator to the plate. Now this one is a very important tool. You need to have it. This is basically a cake stand which is made of plastic and it moves around like so. It's a revolving cake stand and it really helps in frosting the cake beautifully, as you will see in some time. So this one is a very inexpensive investment, but please make it if you wish to frost cakes for celebrations. Before we touch the cake, we will start with making a simple sugar syrup. I'll just mix in a few splashes of water with some sugar. I have used almost 2 to 3 tablespoons of it. There is enough sugar in the cake, so we don't need to sweeten it as much. This step is just to lock the moisture of the sponge cake so that it stays fresh for a week in the refrigerator and still tastes so soft and airy. So that's the only reason why we are making this sugar syrup. Now I'm gonna just pop it in the microwave for about 30 seconds to a minute till the time my sugar is completely dissolved. Let it cool completely. So while my sugar syrup is cooling, let's work on the cake. Let's take it out of the pan carefully. Now because we have sprayed the pan and then covered it with some cocoa powder, it would not be very difficult to take it out. So before we remove the bottom part of the cake pan, I will even out the top layer with a serrated braid knife. Just go back and forth with your knife, slowly and with a steady hand. Don't worry, you will be able to get it. Once you have reached from one edge to the other, now just take a simple plate like so and topple the cake over. Now carefully take the serrated knife or palette knife and remove the bottom part of the cake pan. So this part is going to be our top part. But for now, I'm gonna keep it on the cake stand and take off the cake bits from the top. Try to even it out as much as you can. Once you're happy with it, we'll put the cake board, the cardboard cake board on top and then flip once again. This is the last flip, trust me on this. I know this looks like a big technical flipping session, but trust me, this way you will end up with the best edge on top all the time. So now we've got our cake sitting perfectly on the cake board over the cake stand and our cooled sugar syrup. Now with the help of the silicone brush, I'm gonna brush this sugar syrup all over the cake. Once again, this is not to sweeten the cake, this is mostly to lock in the moisture of the sponge cake so that whenever you bite into the sponge cake, it tastes fresh. So please don't skip this. So now the fun part begins. Let's start by frosting the cake. Now it's been almost 20 minutes that the buttercream is sitting in the refrigerator. So it's beautifully pliable right now. So we will start with something which is called, in technical terms, crumb coat. Basically, this coat will help our cake to catch on to the crumbs. As you can see, my cake is nice and crumbly and very soft. And this is what you need in a good sponge cake. So we'll start with a crumb coat, just like you see in the video right now. Use a spatula and your palette knife to evenly distribute the buttercream all over the cake. Don't miss the sides as well. Once you're happy with the spreading of the buttercream, refrigerate the cake for about 10 to 15 minutes before you attempt to decorate it any further. Now it's time to decorate the cake. I am just going to put another layer of buttercream on the edge, not on the top. The top is very much set already and it is looking beautiful, but the edge needs a little more working to do. So very carefully I'm gonna coat it again with buttercream. And then sprinkle on some of the cake crumbs. You remember the top of the cake part that we have? So we can just crumb it and then sprinkle all around the cake. This way you will get to know that there is a chocolate cake waiting for you, which is amazing to know. And The gradient effect that it gives on the edge of the cake is really beautiful to see, as you will see in the final product. Now, frosting a cake is not a rocket science, but yes, it is festive and it is amazing. And this is a very, very simple beginner's way of making a festive cake. A celebration is not over without a piece of such a decadent cake. Sometimes, most of the times, whenever I make this recipe, I make it like a sandwich. I cut half the cake and then sandwich it with buttercream, like on my son's birthday. But this is my go-to recipe for any birthday or any anniversary. I hope you give it a try. If you do, don't forget to share a picture with me. If you like what you see here, then please do hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more such goodness. See you soon. Cheers.